So let's see what we can make with these weird twisted cultists then, and put a shiny new Chaos datasheet through its paces. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today we're doing a Codex Chaos Space Marines review, and we're going to be focusing on the Accursed Cultist datasheet. These poor mortals who seem to have followed along with the Chaos Space Marines, and then appear to have been demonically twisted into all sorts of new and creative shapes. In this video we'll review the full datasheet, talk about their damage output and any obvious buffs and synergies for the units, and then a little about putting the buffs together and how they might compete in game. Lots to talk about, so let's jump straight into it. So first up, in the Chaos Space Marine Codex, Accursed Cultists are a troops choice. You can take anywhere between 8 and 16 models in the unit. The little guys are called mutants, they just cost 6 points per model and you can take 5 to 10 of them. And then the big twisted ones are the torments, you can take between 3 and 6 of those. They cost 15 points per model and you can only have 4 more torments in the squad if you've got 10 mutants. So I think a lot of people are probably going to be running the full squad with 16 models in it. It perhaps seems like the best way, as that really allows you to take advantage of their pretty awesome regeneration rule. Keywords wise, they are a cultist unit, and it does mean that they have a few fewer options than the standard Chaos Space Marines, lacking a few keywords such as Heretic Astartes, Core, and Demonkin. There's still plenty of things that they can do, but they don't get a fair bunch of options, such as no Legion trait, locked out of a fair few standard character buffs with Core. They aren't Heretic Astartes, which prevents them using certain stratagems, and they aren't demonkin, so despite being all twisted and out of shape, they won't have any major synergy with things like the Master of Possession. As troops though, they do get objectives secured, so that is pretty handy on a fairly durable and threatening unit. Statline wise, they seem really quite efficient for the cost. For 6 points, the mutants are strength and toughness 4, they hit on 4s, and get 2 attacks, both hitting at strength 4 AP minus 1. The squad's leadership 6, and they all have a 6+ save. The big torments also hit on 4s, their strength 5, toughness 4, they've got 3 wounds with their 6+ save, and in combat they do 2d3 attacks, hitting at strength 5, AP minus 2, and damage 2. They kind of feel like cut price Chaos Spawn, but again, for 3 wounds at that profile, plus some fairly meaty melee attacks, that's really very impressive indeed for 15 points I think. In terms of special rules, they are lacking those wanton rules, so they can't use the exploding sixes like a bunch of other Chaos Marines, but to be honest they get rather a lot of fun stuff. First up, and perhaps my favourite buff for the unit, is that Accursed Horde rule. This means that when they've taken casualties in the squad, each of your command phase you regenerate 3 mutants or 1 torment, and you can set them up in unit coherency. Obviously this is great just for returning basically free models back to the board if the enemy doesn't manage to wipe the unit, but just the positioning is pretty awesome. As it happens in the command phase, you could use them to sneak things onto objectives, or to put them up a fair bit closer to the enemy, so after you've moved and charges, your charges should be significantly shorter. They are limited in that they can't do actions or get in transport, which is a small disadvantage, particularly if you are looking for those shadow operation objectives. To be honest, I don't think getting in transports is the biggest deal in the world. They do fine just being spammed on foot, I think. They've got a fearsome special rule, which means that units within 6 inches get -1 leadership, similar to quite a few of the other demonic type units in the book. And rather unexpectedly, they also have a 6+ feel no pain, so they sort of feel a little bit similar to the Death Guard's Poxwalkers in that respect. At 6 points per model with toughness 4 and a small feel no pain, that's actually really quite durable at that points cost. Never mind the fact that they're actually a fairly credible threat in melee with the torments. Finally, they also get another handy slight durability thing, as dead mutant models are ignored for the purposes of morale. Torment still counts, but it means that you can lose the vast majority of the squad before you even have to test morale, which is also very, very nice. Overall, they just seem very efficient. They seem like a pretty annoying unit to have to deal with for 150 points for a maxed out unit, and I feel like they're going to be pretty popular. Here's just a quick damage and defense calculation. Theoretically, it's 150 points for a full unit of 16 models. That would net you 20 attacks at strength 4 and AP minus 1, and an average of 24 attacks at strength 5, AP minus 2, and damage 2. Certainly the torments seem to be doing the heavy lifting there. For a completely unsupported unit that's OBSEC and is fairly durable, that's really not too bad in my opinion. That equates to 13 dead guardsmen, 5 dead space marines, and 7 wounds to a toughness 7 vehicle. Really quite a nice general purpose damage output. I guess it will be a bit worse against anything that's damage -1 though, as the torment attacks won't like that. Durability wise, as we just went through with the special rules, they've got a whole bunch of helpful things, never mind their actual defensive profile. Theoretically, you could choose which of the models to tank the damage on, either torments or mutants, though I think generally you'd want to do the mutants so they're immune to morale. But in any case, any one profile isn't usually going to be good at wiping the entire unit, as you're having to deal with 1 wound models and then 3 wound ones. The Feel No Pain on the Torments really helps out versus things like flat damage 3 weapons, and you actually have a very real chance of saving one from a damage 3 attack. The regeneration ability really punishes enemies not wiping out the squad, and you could maybe hide some torments somewhere in terrain and things. Hopefully the enemy shoots down most of the squad, and then you might be able to regenerate from there. And of course even a partial immunity to leadership is pretty cool. To wipe out the entire squad, in total there's 28 wounds there at toughness 4 with a 6+ save and a 6+ feel no pain. You are going to need a respectable amount of anti-infantry fire. In terms of hits, you'd need 67 hits with bolt rifles. Not bad seeing as they seem to be one of the better profiles for dealing with them, or something like 33 hits with heavy bolters. If you've got a maxed out unit and the opponent wants to stop them regenerating, they're going to have to commit some serious focused fire. Moving on to buffs and synergies next, and as they're cultists, they do have kind of limited options. Most of the character auras aren't going to affect them, they don't get the wanton rules or legion traits, and they can't get any demonkin buffs either. Still though, quite a lot of things do just work off the standard trait auras Astartes and infantry keywords, and there are a fair few buffs tailored just for cultists. First up, perhaps the single most obvious squad to work with them seems like the Dark Commune. They innately give them a reroll 1s to hits, fire and aura, and +2 leadership. Plus, they also have psychic and powers within the squad that they can also throw on the units. For psychic, the Dark Commune could give them prescience, which gives them +1 to hit both at range and melee. Though if you had another sorcerer nearby, they could potentially use warp time as well. Double moving them up the board could get them in a threatening position, though you wouldn't be able to charge the same turn. Maybe it could be good to get them onto a midfield objective though, or inside an important terrain piece and hopefully safe from most enemy fire. Then for the priests, re-rolling all hits in melee is pretty great on a unit that hits on force, plus if you do have a Dark Apostle nearby, he can also grant his leadership to them. The Dark Commune can use that re-rolls one, you need an actual Dark Apostle for the others, but again +1 to wound in melee is amazing, and Illusory Supplication now gives you 1s to 3s will always fail to hit them, and the enemy can't re-roll hit rolls against them. That's going to be a very nice durability buff against high ballistic skill units. Legions wise, as they don't get traits, the main thing that's drawing you to them is the different stratagems that you can use for them, and at least most of the legions do have at least something that can buff cultists. These are just a few of the more standout ones. Word bearers seem great. For 1 command point on the unit that's within 12 inches of a word bearer's character, they can reroll all hit rolls and reroll charges. Very nice, and even more reliable than one of those prayers to the gods. Night Lords for 1 CP can fall back and charge, not bad to have. I guess their -1 leadership might also be handy for other Night Lords units nearby too. For Iron Warriors, they've got that 2 command point cannon fodder one, which means they can tank damage for a more valuable unit behind them. Not too bad maybe if you've got some Havocs there that need some damage tanking. And perhaps the Alpha Legion has one of the best supports for them, a good Warlord trait that gives them both +1 to hit and an extra AP. Not bad on their reasonably low AP weapons, and could really help them tangle with Space Marines, particularly for those Torments. They also have the option of pre-game moving them or returning them to strategic reserve if they need to. Pre-game move does seem like it could be quite good on these, as a reasonably slow melee infantry squad is going to be wanting to foot slog up the board. Finally, Emperor's Children have a 2 command points fights in death stratagem. That could be really brutal if the enemy thinks that they can just wipe them out for no recourse, and have quite a lot of torment attacks to cut them back with. Finally, for just a few more generic stratagems, Veterans of the Long War does appear to be usable on them, as it keys off Traitorous Astartes, not Heretic Astartes. That gives you +1 to wound, and again, as their attacks are fairly low strength, that's going to be a massive boost against bigger, tougher targets. There's a really fun Chaos Space Marine stratagem called Contempt Over Caution, and this one allows one of your Chaos Space Marine units to shoot an enemy that's in combat with these guys, so in theory you could lock them up with these, and then open fire with some of your other units, never minding the fact that the cultists are there in the way. If you get 1s to hit, then you hit the cultists, but I feel at least if you're firing big anti-tank weapons and things at something, then that's probably not going to be the biggest problem. 1 or 2 cultists getting splattered isn't the end of the world. Finally, there's a 1 command point one called Ritual Offerings, and that's if you manage to kill an enemy unit and you get +1 to hit for the rest of the game and auto passing morale. I guess you're gambling on the enemy not just killing you with their return fire or return charge, but at least theoretically, if they did kill something early and they were kind of safe, that could be quite a nice damage boost going forward. Overall, really quite a lot of good stuff. I do feel that that new Dark Commune thing looks like it could be one of the most efficient ways to buff them. A prayer, a power, and some rerolls all seem like a very nice combo. Perhaps particularly if you back that up with Veterans of the Long War or some of the stuff from one of the individual legions. Putting just a few of those buffs together, this is just one idea for one unit that's 150 points supported by the 100 points Dark Commune, and they're going to try and use Prescience for +1 to hit, and then re-rolling all hits from the Dark Zealotry thing. It'll mean that they go from hitting on 4s to hitting on 3s re-rolling, quite a big jump. Overall, it means that if the two buffs do go off, then a 150 point unit would theoretically kill something like 24 dead guardsmen, around about 9 dead standard space marines, or 12 wounds to a toughness 7 vehicle. Then, if you really wanted more damage, you could even use Veterans of the Long War for 2 CP, that'll give you +1 to wounds, and that could be really quite meaningful against the harder targets. It puts you up to a theoretical 18 wounds against that toughness 7 vehicle if you wanted. Overall, in game they just seem very solid indeed, really quite cheap, fairly tough and okay melee, and with objectives secured and filling a troop slot, that feels like a pretty decent combo. If you want to spam them a bit, you will need a few Heretic Astartes core units within the army as well, but that does seem doable, as these units are quite big and meaty. I think to use them in game, I'd be aiming to start them in cover if possible, and then advance towards a midfield objective and scrap with the enemy. Maybe ideally if you could keep some models hidden out of line of sight, and hopefully have the enemy kill most of the unit and regenerate some important models after they've died. I really don't think that the regeneration should be underestimated. You can get much closer to the foe or steal objectives if you're nearby, and really throw a spanner in the works. Overall, I think they bring really quite a lot of raw might, and could be pretty nice along more supported other core chaos units, maybe things like some possessed or something moving up the board, and have the majority of buffs go on them, while these guys operate fairly independently, maybe opportunistically have Prescient or the Dark Zealotry hymn go off on them for some extra damage. In any case, overall these guys seem absolutely excellent. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. I feel like they're going to be a popular choice when the kit does release. If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. I'll certainly keep the regular Chaos videos coming. I'm hoping to make quite a few in and around the release of the Chaos Codex. Hopefully the full Codex review should be one of the next videos. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page, and you can find that down in the video description below if you're interested. Making all the videos does take an awful lot of time and effort, and if you are enjoying a lot, any support is enormously appreciated. It is what allows me to keep all this content coming quite so regularly. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with the chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.